you doing, bud? Let me see. Good, how are you? Good luck this week. Good afternoon, everybody. Welcome to Mandalay Bay. On behalf of Richard Sturm, our President of Sports and Entertainment for MGM Resorts International, and Chuck Bowling, our President and COO of Mandalay Bay Resort and Casino, we'd like to welcome you to this afternoon's press conference in anticipation of Saturday night's UFC 143 event. As we all know, it should be a sensational weekend across the city with the Super Bowl on Sunday, but we believe that we've got a bigger event here on Saturday night with the entire fight card. On behalf of Mandalay Bay, we'd like to thank our partners at UFC, Frank and Lorenzo Fertitta, President of UFC, Dana White, obviously the entire production and PR teams who put this together, everyone from Tim O'Toole and Joni Mendrick, Karyn Bell, Heidi Gerber, Dave Schaller, and their entire teams. Of course, we can't forget the Nevada State Athletic Commission and Keith Kaiser and his entire team. So without further ado, I'd like to introduce Dana White, President of UFC, who will take you through the press conference this afternoon. Thanks.
All right, good afternoon, everybody. Thank you for coming out. We appreciate it. Before we get started, I want to announce a couple of things here. The next UFC Fan Expo will take place Friday, July 6th. And Saturday, July 7th, here at the Mandalay Bay Convention Center, and tickets officially go on sale now. So anybody who's interested, pick up some tickets. The other thing that I wanted to point out is for this fight, Harley Davidson, and for the main event, I'm talking about the main event, Condit versus Diaz, Harley Davidson is giving the winner of this fight a brand new Harley Davidson motorcycle. So thank you, Harley Davidson. That's it, I'm done. Who's got the first question?
For Carlos, please. Carlos, coming into this fight, obviously you were the guy that kept getting shuffled around and moved around, and then it seems this week so much of the attention has been on Nick and on George St. Pierre as well. I'm curious how that's affected you emotionally, your mindset. Are you going to be fighting with a bit of a chip on your shoulder? How has it affected you?
Well, I got a huge task in Nick Diaz, and to focus on anything other than that would be a mistake. So I've just been trying to concentrate on the matter at hand, which is beating Nick.
And a quick one for Nick as well. Nick, obviously you've said coming into this fight that you think Carlos is actually a bigger test than George St. Pierre. Can you point specifically as to why you think he's a better fighter, what it is about him that makes it a tougher fight?
I think he's more of a dangerous fighter. May not. Like you're more in danger of losing a decision to George St. Pierre. I think you're more in danger of losing your teeth if you're fighting Condit here. So.
Good answer. And one final question for Dana, please. Dana, when you put this fight together, put it as an interim belt because you said you thought the belt would probably be defended. George has been around here saying, hey, he's healing faster than he thought. What's your take on that in talking to him? Do you feel like this belt will be defended, or do you think, maybe the winner goes straight to St. Pierre?
Yeah, it's one of the things you never know. I've been in situations so many times now where a guy gets injured and it takes him a long time to recover. George St. Pierre is definitely on the fast track to recovery. He's a hard worker. He's a freak of nature, so we'll see what happens. If we're in a situation where he's not ready and one of these guys are ready to defend the belt, we'll do it. If not, then we'll go right into the George St. Pierre fight. Just take it day by day and see how it goes.
Question for Dana White. Can you talk about the intro you guys changed for the new UFC 143?
The what?
The intro. It seems like the Gladiator intro is gone, and you guys changed it.
Yes, we're actually. I'm going to go over that with the media when this thing's over. Whoever wants to come can come with me, and we'll go over that after the press conference.
I have a question for Nick. Nick, do you feel like that the media has taken focus off of you and Carlos and put a lot of focus still continuously on you and George St. Pierre for this fight? And do you feel like that's maybe disrespectful to Carlos Condit?
Yeah, no, I think it makes me sick. This is Carlos's time, to be here and to be a part of this main event, and this is half of this show is built up around me fighting George St. Pierre, but that's not, I'm fighting Carlos Condit. So I just I don't like it.
Carlos, how do you feel about that?
Well, it's I feel like they're planning that fight, before this one has even happened, and that's fine because I have the opportunity to get in there and spoil those plans.
Dana, to your left, right over here. Just to clarify on a question that John asked, George has been saying November. That's when he could possibly fight. Is that too long for you? If these guys say, I'll wait until November, is that all right?
No, it depends on what happens. I mean, it depends on which guy wins, how he comes out of the fight, how he feels after the fight. Does he want to fight again right away? Does he want to, there's so many different factors. Who knows? But this fight's happening on Saturday. When this fight's done, we'll go from there.
And to the fighters, I don't want to take your focus away from the fight in front of you, but just can you give your thoughts on potentially waiting until November if that is a time frame that George comes back? Is that something you'd be comfortable with? It's kind of a long layoff to go through.
Well, it's something that I would have to discuss with my trainers and my management. We haven't looked that far ahead. Like I said, my focus is on this fight on Saturday.
Great. Dana, it's Karyn. Question for you. What were the contributing factors in bringing Fabricio back to the UFC? We know he was here before, and I know you're planning to dissolve the heavyweights and Strikeforce, but he obviously went on a campaign, but what was it that really decided it for you?
Joe Silva.
Oh, yeah? and why was Joe convinced?
Joe, he's obviously had a good run, and Joe brought him back when we purchased Strikeforce.
Thanks.
Hey, Dana. Josh made the point yesterday that he would have been interested in fighting Maia last week had regulations allowed it. Would there have been any way that you would consider having a guy fight like that if, especially a guy like him who's proven he could come back quick?
It's funny because Josh is one of these guys that's one of the most booed fighters alive. Every time this guy walks into a room, he gets booed. Every time we call Josh Koscheck to fight, or if we don't call Josh Koscheck, he calls us. When a fight pops up, this kid is always ready, willing to fight anybody, anytime, with no notice. It's one of the things that I really respect about Josh Koscheck. So to answer your question, I know we weren't, we didn't say, oh yeah, let's get Koscheck in there to fight it, at 185 pounds. No, but that is the type of person he is. When a fighter falls out, you can always be ready to get a text from Josh Koscheck saying he wants that fight.
And I just wanted to, on a different subject, ask you, there was a comment that John Jones talked about fighting in heavyweight this year, and wanted to get your thought on that.
What was it?
A comment on John Jones saying he'd like to fight at heavyweight this year. Would you ever give that any credence, and would you think of that as something that might happen this year?
Yeah, I'm not really interested in him fighting at heavyweight this year. He's at 205. There's still guys there to fight, and he's very young. But it's going to happen eventually. I don't think it's going to happen this year.
Nancy O'Day from TVA Sports in Montreal. A question for Nick. Nick, what is your motivation? Is it to beat Carlos Condit, or you want to beat Carlos Condit to be able to fight George St. Pierre?
Yeah. Of course, I want to win the fight. That would be. I just want to stay healthy and move forward, and that's the direction I need to go. So.
Another question for Nick, following up on that. Nick, you talk about not wanting to do these occasions. Has this week's busyness around the event got in your way at all in terms of your mental preparation for fighting Carlos on Saturday night?
I'm pretty mentally set. I think if anything, it taxes your physical preparation on account of just time and dealing with these people, and then press and everything, and time and dealing with what you normally be dealing with. So it's a little extra work, but I'm pretty much the same always.
You talk about your love of jiu-jitsu and that you love training. Is it possible that if you beat Carlos, it's rumored that you may be earning $1 million for this fight? I don't know if that's true, but it's been rumored. And then if you go on to fight GSP, you could earn several $1 million. Could that be the end for you in the UFC? Would you walk away as the champion?
You know, I can't. That's going to depend on a lot of things. I doubt. I mean, as long as I'm motivated to fight, I'm motivated to fight. You know, so I can't say that right now.
This question's for Josh and then also for Mike. You guys are both right there at the top of the welterweight class. Do you feel like with the whole kind of trio going on around Nick and Carlos and George that you guys are being overlooked in the division? And that would be for Josh, and then if Mike could also chime in.
I don't think I'm overlooked. You know, I've proven it before. Just got to win fights and work my way back up there. So as of right now, I'm fighting Mike Pierce Saturday, and that's all I'm focused on. You know, I don't really pay too much attention to the media and what you guys are doing around, you know, the internet and all that. So I'm pretty focused right now. So I'm just worried about winning Saturday night.
And just to kind of second what Josh said, you know, I'm not really focused on what's going on with those three. I got Josh Koscheck Saturday, and that's really the only thing that's on my mind, and I'm just looking forward to getting there on Saturday.
Dana, this question's for you. 3 incredible matchups up there. Could we get your thoughts on all 3 matchups?
Give what?
Your thoughts on all 3 matchups?
We made them. I love these fights.
What's in
store? I think they're going to be great. I think it's going to be awesome. I think everybody should buy the pay-per-view, and people should buy tickets if they didn't. I think it's going to be amazing.
Fair enough. Can you give me your thoughts on Nick Diaz, his evolution? I mean, he's been doing so much media. It's almost a complete polar opposite of what people expect of him. He's doing an amazing job. I mean, can you talk about how he's been doing so far?
Yeah, I think that, you know, originally when he first came back to the UFC, he'd been out of the UFC for a few years, and there's no doubt that there's a big difference being in the UFC and being somewhere else. People don't realize the workload that everybody does. You know, there's tons of media. There's all kinds of other things to do. It's not just about. I understand guys want to focus and focus on their fight and train, but when you're in the UFC, there's a lot of other stuff that you got to do, and it's a pain in the ass. It's not fun to do, and like he said today, which is absolutely true. It's taxing on you physically. It really is. And but I can tell you this, you know, the response for this prime time has been phenomenal. People are loving this prime time, and if you haven't seen it, you should probably check it out. It's one of the best we've ever done, and you know, I think Nick's getting into the groove.
For Nick and Carlos, over here. In theme of talking about how the media and attention has been emotionally and physically taxing, I'd like to know how you're doing, what you're doing to unwind and relax right now, what your hobbies are right while you're here this week. And Carlos, did you bring your kid out here?
No, I didn't. He was out here for the last fight, and having a 1-year-old running around when you're cutting weight isn't all that much fun. But you know, I'm just relaxing. You know, I love fight week. You know, training camp's over. You know, I'm excited to step in there and do what I've trained to do for the last 6 some odd months. So you know, I'm just enjoying it. You know, and you know, having fun in Vegas and you know, just getting ready to do the thing. Literally, I'm not doing anything. Like I'm doing my workouts, I'm doing my media, and I'm just relaxing in my hotel room and focusing on cutting my weight right now.
You know, it's pretty much the same for me every time. The quicker I get through these days here, the quicker I get to go home.
A question for Dana. Could you talk a little bit about Nick's evolution as a UFC personality and kind of his role in the UFC?
I don't think he has a role or there's been this evolution. I think Nick Diaz is who he is, and even before he came back to the UFC when he was in Strikeforce, I mean, one of the things that I said since day one is I don't want Nick Diaz not to be Nick Diaz. You know, there's people out there who love the way Nick Diaz is, and there's people out there that don't like him. Doesn't matter either way, as long as people care one way or the other. But I think that one of the things that bothered Nick was that, you know, a lot of the way that people think he is or thought he was isn't the truth or the reality. And like you said in this episode of Primetime, it's like, you know, I'm getting ready for a fight, and this is how I prepare for a fight, and this is the way that I am, you know, during fight week and at the fights. And I think a lot of people have learned a lot about Nick Diaz over the last 3 weeks. But I've never, you know, I don't think Nick has evolved or anything else. Unfortunately, there's things that we have to do, you know, press conferences and PR and all the things that we don't want to do, we have to do. But as far as who he is as a person and who he is outside of the octagon, I think people got to see that over the last 3 weeks.
This